stupid button.
There we go.
Yeah, we're live. We're live. Hey, everyone! Thank you for joining us on the second live stream of the Comic Binge. I am joined by two, basically, would you call each other co-hosts? Are we co-hosts? Or are we like what are we?
I think so. I think that was what Zach said in the beginning.
We're based in Spidey Pilled.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyway, yeah, welcome to the Comic Binge live stream number 2. This is basically me just BSing, talking to people about comic books, people I work with, or whatever. Work with me, and like we hang out and chill about comics. So anyway, I don't really have a lot to really plan. I just want to just chit chat. So anyway, Neil, for people who don't know, we're on the Spidey Dude Podcast Network, and we're part of the Spidey Dude Experience with my friends here. And I've been a fan of Zach's since the Crawl Space, and I've been, in fact, the Crawl Space is a big reason why I listen to podcasts now. But I knew Zach through that, and when he kind of did his own thing, I begged him. I basically begged Zach to jump on. I wanted to be a part of a Spider-Man podcast, but I didn't have I wouldn't say the guts, but I just didn't have the energy to build it up. But Zach's great, and he brought in Neil, and I knew Neil from the Crawl Space podcast as well. So yeah, I mean, Neil, tell me, what got you into comics, man? I'm just curious.
An accident.
Usually is.
So, oh god, it's been years since I read my first comic. My first comic that I ever read was the ASM Civil War trade. The Straczynski.
Really?
I think it was Ron Garney and Tyler Kirkham.
Yep, Garney. Yep. Yeah.
That was the first ones I ever read, because that was a trade paperback my friend owned, and then the first comic I ever read was Straczynski Romita Jr.'s ASM number 505 Vibes.
Wow.
And then I kind of went on and off on ASM for a bit, and I recently really got back into a Marvel kick with Fresh Start.
Mm-hmm. When was Fresh Start at?
2018, after Secret Empire.
Is it Fresh Start? What was it? Wait, wasn't it Point One? Wait, which one was?
All New All Different was Point One.
Wait, hold on a second. Yeah. Was it actually called Fresh Start?
Yeah, that's what the relaunch was called.
What the hell? I don't remember this at all.
Hell?
It actually was called Fresh Start.
I'll get the TV tropes page for you.
Give it to me. Give it to me. Yes. So that's
for everyone that does know.
Yeah. So you haven't. So you started reading comics back around that. So it was towards the end of the slot run when you got back into comic books or into comics, right?
Yeah. So I'd been reading ASM regularly since the slot run. I started
okay.
But that was the only book I was reading, and that was more out of just this is my favorite character, so I should keep supporting it.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I went back and I collected Robbie Thompson and Stacey Lee's Silk Run.
Okay.
And so then it's called A Fresh Start.
I don't even remember that at all. That's crazy.
And that's my widest expansion of my Marvel knowledge, and it gave me an opening into these characters, and I've gone back since then and read more.
Oh yeah, of course.
But this is my reach out in this is what got me reading more Marvel that was actually good.
Well, so it's been a while for me to think about 2018. What was out around 2018?
So ASM, obviously Spencer's run, got me really invigorated on Spider-Man, and that's the character I had the most background knowledge of because of my reading for the Crawl Space.
Sure.
And then there was Immortal Hulk.
Yep.
Slott's Iron Man, which
and his Fantastic Four.
I tried reading that. I quit after 4 issues. I stayed on Slott's Iron Man for Sheedy's art.
Mm-hmm. He's a good artist.
Coates' Captain America, I lost interest in that early, but that was interesting for the first 6 issues.
I would agree. See, a lot of people are crapping on that thing, and I remember.
I can understand why they would, because it's really, really slow. Coates I've read Coates' like prose work and like his
Yes.
work for the Atlantic, and he's a fantastic writer.
Yeah,
I just don't.
for sure.
I just don't think that his strength is in a visual medium like comics. He's a bit too prosy in his script writing.
See, I would agree with you to an extent because Black Panther was very inconsistent for me, and I remember loving the first couple of issues, and after that, it just like he did not know how to bring, like you said, the physical or the more visual medium, if you will, into his writing, and didn't know where to like back off from dialogue and where to like keep it interesting. The problem with, I think, Coates or with a lot of screenwriters who come into comic books and don't and like the medium but don't like love the medium and don't understand it, they get over dialogue-y, and I know it's kind of a super way to say it.
And it's in a weird way, I think that's where like part of my appreciation for Jonathan Hickman comes in. We'll talk about him later, trust me. But like,
oh, I'm sure.
One of the things I like about him as a writer is that he knows when to keep the exposition off the page, and like he even has like those dedicated like graphic pages in like his indie work. I think
for sure.
In East of West, like he has those dedicated graphs. So it doesn't feel like he's having. So it feels like he's expositing through visuals rather than expositing through dialogue. And as someone who does graphic design, I really appreciate that type of exposition.
Well, it's a different aesthetic that he brings to his comic books, right? I mean, that's what House of X and Powers of 10, that's what they did throughout the whole, I love the graphs, like when he talks about the Moira's different lives. I mean, spoiler alert, you'll figure that out if you haven't read it yet. But
I've actually reached out to the guy who did the graphics, Tom Muller. Not about House of X and Powers of 10, but like how he came to the decisions he came to while doing when he's redesigning brands.
That's interesting. Yeah,
and Immortal Hulk. Can't leave out Immortal Hulk from Fresh Start, because that's been one of the pillars of Fresh Start.
Well, Immortal Hulk is easily maybe my favorite Marvel title. Maybe of all time. Part of it, like it might be. It might be. Yeah.
Are you gonna be picking up Gamma Flight when it comes out?
I'll give it a shot. I'm not sold on it, but I love the characters. I don't like Puck being in it. Puck just
really.
Yeah, I'm not I like Puck, but not. He's weird. He's not. I don't know. He doesn't really fit in anywhere. But
is it like he feels out of place? I think it was because they had the Alpha Flight characters and Puck and to transition into Gamma Flight, and Puck was there. Yeah. I like him in the book. I just feel like he's out of place in terms of his role on the team. And since Sasquatch died, he's kind of just been there. Yeah, he's had some standout moments, but right.
Well, I mean, now. Let me just tell you now, Immortal Hulk is one of those titles that I love. Like Spider-Man will always be my favorite fictional character of all time, and I'll always collect his comic books, and that'll always be my favorite. But if we're talking about just runs and storylines, Immortal Hulk is already up there, and I did not expect to like it. In fact, I think I remember I was listening to a Crawl Space episode and people were talking about it. I remember thinking like, they brought Hulk back. Hawkeye killed him from Civil War. All that. Garbage.
I liked No Surrender.
I didn't read it. But
really good.
But anyway, I remember when it was on the Crawl Space and other people that I knew said they liked it, and it had only been like 3 or 4 issues out, so I went and read the last 4 issues. The first 4, and then I'm like, okay, I'm in. This is rad. And then I had no idea what I was getting into, because the whole series is phenomenal. On my Twitter page, people who follow me, they'll know. They'll tell you. They'll say that I've been screaming about this book since I started reading it, and it has not, to me, it maybe dipped a little bit here or there, but not even that much. I mean, it's telling such a great story that it's unique in itself, but it's also takes a lot of influences from different things, like Swamp Thing. Like, it's obviously this is Marvel's Swamp Thing finally. Looking for that title that's kind of unique and dark, but also still embraces the character and the mythology, and that's it also turning it on its head, doing all those things, but also being a respectable comic book. Immortal Hulk is doing that, and it's to me, and it's funny because Brevoort, it sounds like, went to Al Ewing and said their idea was basically Swamp Thing was, let's make this a horror based kind of book, and Al ran with it. I thought Al was the one who pitched it or whatever, but it sounds like that wasn't the case. But maybe I'm wrong. But it sounds
it's
Freeform
weird
was
because
one.
it's weird because like Al Ewing is kind of like we were talking about Bendis before the stream started. I think Al Ewing in a good way is the new Bendis, where like Bendis had like 4 or 5 different titles going on at Marvel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, that's kind of Al Ewing right now, and he's got like his own little tiny Marvel universe right now. He's got Sword, he's got Immortal Hulk, he's got Gamma Flight, he's got Guardians. I can't remember what else he has. He has one more title, I think, doesn't he?
He's got crap. You already said Guardians, so I'm trying to think what else he has. I don't remember. Maybe another miniseries or something like that, but I don't know.
The difference is that I really like I really like Ewing's little more interconnected universe. It feels a bit more organic than Bendis's does. It kind of feels like Bendis just had like his pet characters.
Well, Bendis had when I got into comics back into comic books in the mid 2000s. Bendis had just gotten off Daredevil, and I did not know him from anybody other than I saw him in the DVD for Daredevil's special features, which is great, by the way. I love that special features. The Man Without Fear, so good. But I remember reading Avengers, New Avengers, what I fell in love with. I never got like this is different. This is Bendis's world because he was already established himself as the main comic writer for Marvel. So it was like I never really thought he had his own little universe. And even looking back, did he even have his own universe? I mean, he had Daredevil, but what else did he write at that time besides obviously Alias? But Alias, Daredevil, what else did he have?
I'm thinking of like Avengers, like after we'll call 2005 to 2010 his Avengers saga, because he had like Avengers after that, but that was more just like him doing whatever he felt like doing regardless of continuity. But like after X-Men, and you have his 2012 to 2015 X-Men runs, because he had All New and Uncanny, I think.
Yeah. Oh god.
But like 2015 to 2018 is when he left Marvel, right?
Yeah.
And went to Superman. That's what I like to call the OC saga, where like he took like his favorite characters and just created like new ones that he just felt like I feel like doing this. Also the MCU, like a bunch of synergy. That's when I think Bendis got like to his low point. I know that you and I have different opinions on that, but I just think that Bendis got a little too self-indulgent when it came to using characters that he like his pet characters. Like he really pushed the MCU Defenders because they were his babies, and then he pushed Ironheart really hard, and it kind of felt like he was taking not MJ, but well, MJ was a big component of that, but like Tony Ho from Ewing's US Avengers and New Avengers, like he was taking that and did absolutely nothing with her, and like Tony Ho is a character I really like. And it just felt like he wasn't doing anything with her. So.
Who was she again? Was she in the U.S. Avengers?
Yeah, she was Ho Yinson's daughter.
Oh God, I don't even know who that is. Because she's not the chick from Avengers Academy, is she?
No.
No.
Who? Hazmat?
Hazmat. Yeah, I love Hazmat. She's rad. I'm a Hazmat fan. Oh God.
I buy. Yeah, that's good. It's a good choice.
Wow.
But like,
hater, dude.
What? No, I like Avengers Academy.
Oh, you do?
Yes, I'm being.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. Have you read Avengers Academy?
No.
Get on that, Holmes. Get on that.
Just read Sky High.
Don't just read the whole thing. The whole thing is good. The whole thing is good.
No, I'm joking.
Okay, good. And by the way, I know you're gonna probably hate this, Neil. But Kelly Thompson's Captain Marvel, people crap on it. It's not bad.
No,
it's
I
not
like
a bad
it.
book. Okay, who was crapping on it? I thought someone, maybe you were defending it. I don't know. But I knew someone. I was arguing with someone about it.
Wasn't Zach?
I think people. It's just online people. Online people are just so like. It's weird. Like people I respect, like legitimately people I respect online. They were crapping on the new Iron Man series, Captain Marvel. Are we
talking about Cantwell's run, or
Cantwell's run? And I'm like, Iron Man's been pretty good, I thought. And
I think most of its problems are technical. Like I really like the character work he's doing, but his pacing isn't is not horrible, but it's a compounding problem as the series goes on. Like, it gets a little sluggish, and it's kind of increasingly gotten worse as time goes on.
Well, I think that a lot of people or people that I've seen online, like on YouTube and things like that, they're saying that it's Hellcat. It's a Hellcat book or whatever, and it's.
I think that that's a legitimate criticism. Is that like, and not in like the cringe forced feminism shit. Like, I don't think it's that problem. I think the problem is that Cantwell has a story he wants to tell with Tony, and Hellcat is basically him just saying what he wants to do with Tony.
Well, I think that's a fair point. I do think that there's a legitimate like story he's telling with the two characters, even though I don't like the fact they're in a relationship already, or they had that little moment of weakness, you could say. That was I think, a little too early at this point. But at the same time, I think they're very much two sides of the same coin, and they're very similar, and they can relate to a lot of each other because they are celebrities. They have that aspect to them, and I like that. I like the fact that like Tony has someone he can kind of like, he understands where he's coming from. Yeah, exactly. And it's not just like Rhodey who doesn't understand necessarily the world that Tony lives in. Well, Patsy does, and I think that's interesting. But
I think what works is that Tony's God complex is being called on. Yeah. But the problem is that's Patsy's entire role in the book, is to provide a blatant foil to that God complex.
Yeah.
I love when Tony dabbles. Like, there's that bit where he's like beating the crap, where he drops Melter out of the sky for wrecking his car. I liked that bit. But then you've got like him and Hellcat sitting on a plane literally talking about the conflict rather than. It's a tell rather than show kind of book.
But I think, to me, I don't mind. See, I don't mind when people tell me things, as long as it has a place, and as long as it's pushing the plot forward and the characters forward. Not the whole time, obviously, but a little bit. That's just kind of my thing. And Iron Man is, let's be real, since Fraction, and I'm not the biggest Matt Fraction fan as far as the stories he tells in his comic books. I do think his Iron Man is really good. It's very good, actually, and we haven't got a good Iron Man series since basically Fraction left.
We've had Gillen, Venus, and Slott.
Bemis wrote Iron Man?
No, Venus. That's what I call Bendis. I call him Venus.
Oh yeah. Well, to be fair, I thought his Iron Man was all right. I
like the art. Okay, I need to emphasize this. I hate that Bendis gets good artists, because you're essentially wasting talent. You've got
David. Don't say that.
You've got David Marquez, who I think is one of the underrated geniuses of the industry right now, and you've essentially got him repeating the same panel over and over again.
Yeah.
Oh,
you remember that page where he's like, where Tony does like a high five, where Science Bros is just the same panel for 5 pages. That kind of thing drives me absolutely goddamn nuts.
Yeah, I don't know. You can't blame Bendis for getting like good artists, because
I can't. I'm going to, because he's.
You can't do that.
I can't, because he's the one who's asking for them.
They want to work with them though.
Because it's easy work. He just gives them the same panel over and over again.
Let me say, listen. Static paneling is still. It works. It has a place in comic books. You can't just say you can't be like, it's no. You can't do that at all. Anytime you put anything in a box, it's wrong, in my opinion, in comic books. You can tell whatever story you want. If that's all he did, yes, it'd be boring. But Bendis has a way with dialogue and knows, how. Because think about this, and this is where I give him a lot of credit. Bendis knows he has a lot of dialogue and a lot of things that he wants the characters to say. Well, how do you do that and make it interesting? Okay, so he just has a certain way to keep it visually interesting, and the static shots is a way to make it interesting in some regard. Now,
Chris
is backstage, I think.
Oh, is he? Oh, hold on, guys. I got my friend Chris. He tried to call me earlier, and I forgot. I've just been. Oh my gosh!
So Paul, it would be less of a problem if.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Shut up.
But Paul, I wouldn't be as aggressive in my criticism of it if the plot didn't move at a snail's pace. Like he takes up like 2 trades worth of time to tell a single arc.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be as bothersome to me in terms of like, you know, doing like the static panels if the plot was moving, but it's not. Like with Spencer's ASM, and this is actually like I have a problem with Tom King doing, like in his Batman and Heroes in Crisis, where he just wastes where he just like comics are basically a treasure. A treasure. You have to relish your space that you have. You have 22 pages to tell a story, and like 100 or so for a trade. So you have to be careful and deliberate with what you're putting in the panels, and you know, just wasting that page space. I'm a very essentialist person by nature, so I see like when you look at Heroes in Crisis, when you have Black Canary get up and leave in the third panel, it's just the same panel for 6 panels of just a blank space. You're wasting valuable panel space on something that could be used to develop another character, but it's just a blank wall.
See, this is great. I love this. This is exactly what the Comic Binge was designed for. And before I go any further, which Neil, thank you. I love this. I love what you're going with. Neil, Chris, Neil.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
How's it going?
Chris, I'm sorry. We got heavy in discussion.
You only called me 20 minutes ago, and I've been sitting backstage.
You were not there for 20 minutes. You stop that right now. You were not there for 20 minutes.
I got sunflower seeds. I'm gonna watch this. This is great.
No. But mute yourself. Don't eat on so I don't hear you munch. Okay, Neil, I love you, Neil. But come on, Adam. Before I gotta hear your take because you're me. I think me and you have a little bit more of in line than Neil here, Mr. Sunflower Seed. So I want to respond to Neil, but I want to let Chris and you go first because I think he brings up a good point. I don't agree with it. Surprise of the century, but. Adam, what's your take on like artists? Like what? Because I think Neil brings a good point. I don't think he's wrong necessarily either. But what's your take on paneling and art and things like that for a mainstream 22-page comic?
That's a hard one. It's like I think I see like what you're saying, Paul, but I get what Neil's saying too. Like I think we talked about this on Spidey Dude. I brought it up a couple episodes ago. The most recent example that comes to my mind of that is when Bagley did Peter's monologue in ASM 60. And I liked that. And like I said, when we did that, I'm not trying to like, you know, disparage anyone really, but it's just to me what Bagley did with Peter there and the paneling there, that was interesting. And he could have like, you know, he could have just done, you know, the same static shot over and over, but he decided to, you know, have, you know, different angles, different shots of Peter's face to make, and, you know, to me that was more interesting. I think like, I guess it depends on, it's a case-by-case basis. I mean, that's Bendis's thing.
I'm glad you brought up Bagley because I just pulled up I pulled up pages from Bendo number 25, which is also an issue that Bagley did. But like, I'm talking about like panels that just have nothing. No, I know. Like the kind that like remember that one Invincible issue where Robert Kirkman literally made fun of Bendis just having the character literally just sit there for 2 panels and say, no, not really. That's not cheap.
There is, I think if it's like a kind of, I think there's a time when that can be appropriate if it's for like, you know, to kind of, if it's to sort of like, you know, if we're thinking of this stuff as like, you know, a storyboard for a, you know, TV or movie, which it isn't, but, you know, if we think of it like that, then there is kind of like, if it's like, you know, a timing thing, it's just like, the problem is like, there's a point where it can be too much, which I've seen some of the Bendis stuff. I think that can be a little too much. And like, you know, there's the thing about his dialogue. I think a lot of the jokes about his dialogue are, you know, they're warranted. But I mean, I don't know. Like, there's a time and a place for it. I think it just depends.
Amen. Yeah, that's great, Chris. I know you have a lot to say about this because you're kind of. I think you're kind of like me. You're kind of like what like in Adam. Like it's a little bit whatever fits, but it's more than that, obviously. But what's your take on this? Because I think this is good. This is good stuff.
For me, it's situationally dependent. I guess that I'm less tolerant of it in a regular monthly book. So,
Sure.
you know, I brought up Tom King. I guess I was less permissive of that just in terms of what I wanted to see in an issue of his Batman than I was reading Mr. Miracle.
Right. Yeah.
Because the nature of a story like Mr. Miracle is more contemplative.
What the hell is that, Paul?
Deliberative. It's a little bit slower. And the one exception that kind of made me come around on Tom King with Batman was either the first or second issue of I Am Suicide, because he made clear that this was going to be something that was designed to be a little bit of a deeper dive into the thing that actually drives Batman on a daily and nightly basis. And I was along for the ride on that. But most of the time, if I'm reading a monthly book, and everybody can pull it off differently, Bendis pulls it off less efficiently than Tom King does, at least in most of the things that I've seen. But if the story warrants that kind of slower pace, then I'm usually fine with it. A difference, though, in Tom King's specific case, and I haven't read the last two most recent issues, I'm really impatient with the pacing of Rorschach, and Rorschach does that a lot. So,
also like Batman Catwoman, since we're on the Tom King train, like it's obnoxious how slow the pacing in that book is. The best parts are when Phantasm's on the page, and that's like sparingly.
I haven't started that yet. I'm a little bit behind on finishing out Tom King's run on the main book. Paul knows this. I'm ludicrously behind on a lot of current monthlies, with the sole exception of Captain America, actually. But
It's so weird.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's
Chris,
just
Chris, really quickly. Neil was a fan of the first run or 6 issues of Coates as Captain America, and I have read a good portion of it. You've read it. I can get this dude Adam probably to read it at some point. We should do like a Captain America kind of thing, because this is kind of a side note, because I want to deviate from this topic. This is great discussion. But at some point, I want to do a great deep dive of just analyzing the run of Coates as Captain America, because again, a lot of people are kind of like harsh on it, and I remember reading it, and I've been harsh on Coates' comic stuff. Like, I'm not a huge fan of his Black Panther, but I am a fan of. I did like the original Captain America issues that I read. I'm like, man, these are pretty solid book. It's a pretty solid like run. And then I saw people talking mess about it, and I'm thinking, what? So we got to do that at some point.
Yeah, for the most part, I like
Sure.
it, but I mean, it really kind of goes to what do people like to exemplify at different moments when writing Captain America? Because more than a lot of other superheroes, even some of the more totemic superheroes, it seems like Captain America, for whomever is writing him at the moment, is trying to say something about that moment. The things that immediately come to mind are like John Nee Reaver with John Cassaday in the Marvel Knights series, the one volume 4, I think, in the early to mid 2000s. They kind of went into. I actually wasn't a big fan at all of Kirkman on Captain America, but you compare that with Jurgens, you compare that with some of the early to mid Brubaker stuff, and then Rick Remender did a whole different set of things, and then Nick Spencer had something entirely different to say with him. He kind of helps to prove that even though the character's concepts are relatively rigid, one of the reasons that he's my favorite Marvel character is because everybody, regardless of an individual's ideology, understands that the symbolic power is really there with him, and they just choose to use that symbolic power in different ways. I don't always agree with it, but I can't deny the power of it. and that's one of the things that I like about him so much.
So going back into about topic we were talking about with comic book paneling, and again, everyone brings up great points, and I think Neil, to an extent, you would agree also that within reason, if it's done right in the right context, that's not bad. If it's used sparingly, right? But for me, I tend to be a little bit on the side of whatever the artist and the writer wants to do, let them do it, and if people like it, then great. If it goes over well, whatever. I want to keep it. I always feel I want the artist and writer to do what they want to do. Tom King and Bendis are obviously notorious for doing these kinds of things, and I think it's with mixed results for me. I don't think it always works, or it always works fine for me, but it never like goes over where I'm saying to myself, "Oh my God, this is like crap," or I'm not saying this is brilliant. It's always serving a story, and I'm trying to bring up a page while we're talking here, since I can do this on my StreamYard thing now.
Wow.
I know. No, I want to bring up a page of what we're kind of maybe talking about a little bit. I guess it's more of like this, not like static paneling, because this is like more of a. I'll show you an example. It's on Rorschach actually, Chris. One of my favorite pages actually. But anyway, I tend to believe that I think that as long as the writer and the artist are doing what they want to do, and then we gotta let them do it. I mean, but Chris brought up a great point that I want to say, and you basically said the same thing, Neil, that it's like you want, if you're gonna, don't waste space, and Chris, you said you have less tolerance for it in a 22-page comic book.
In a regular title,
especially because factoring in inflation, we're at $3.99. We're at $3.99 per issue. So these prices tend to compound over time. So you have to get your money. You have to make sure the consumer is getting their money's worth. I'm thinking of this from not only a artistic, technical perspective, but I'm thinking of this from a pro-consumer perspective. That like this shit's expensive.
Geez, you're gonna break it down by page cost. I also got to break it down by, is this a solo book or is this a team book? Because if it's a team book,
because like more. I was talking with Paul about Bendis's, because Bendis took over Justice League. Yeah, and I was talking like nothing happened in the book. They fought a guy and then he left, and then Naomi suddenly.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I'm going to save my opinion for this book because I'm going to read it. I'm a Bendis fan, and so I'm going to read it. But I think you guys bring up great points. If you're going to do a comic book that is 22 pages, and that again, you're charging them $9. That's too much. That's too much. And if you're doing I know. I think my internet went wacky. Am I back?
You're okay.
Yep.
You're okay now.
Okay. If you're charging someone $3.99 or now $4.99, and then you have a backup with your a page of static paneling, your other 20 pages better be damn good. You know what I mean? Right. So I think
typically you can use the static pages sort of like a litmus test for where the run's gonna go. Like with Bendis's Iron Man run, like I mentioned the facial hair bros page where it's just 4 panels of him holding his hand up to Doctor Strange. I was like, oh, it's gonna be one of those books, isn't it? Bendis's Iron Man run.
But I liked it. But I liked that. That was a great moment. At least for me.
Well, you guys started talking about Bendis, and I saw the beginning of that part of the conversation. You didn't mention at all his masterpiece, Spider-Man Activision #1, that only appeared in a single issue of GamePro magazine in the year 2000, that led straight into the story of the 2000 Spider-Man game.
I only just learned about that fairly recently, actually. I have not read it, but I don't think I knew that existed until like a month ago or something.
Leave it to Cloud.
I mean, it's
Leave it
fine.
to Cloud.
It's fine. I did an episode of my show Comics on Consoles about the 2000 Spider-Man game, which I actually think is a masterpiece.
You guys, Neil, especially you, I'm not sure how much of video games you are, but this guy is a huge video game person.
I played a lot of the Spider-Man games, not the newest two, but most of them.
The 2000 game, I think, did
brilliant.
For comic book video games what Superman the movie did for comic book cinema.
Sure. Yeah.
It helped you to realize how you can translate one of these characters into an interactive environment and actually give credence to the powers and the story. It was very much like a classic Stan and Jack era Spider-Man comic mixed with an episode of the animated series.
Steve Ditko, please, not Jack Kirby.
Stan and Jack era.
Oh, whatever.
Stan and Steve. Stan and John Romita Sr., whatever you want to say.
Stan and Jack Romita Sr. You
always do this. You always do this. You always bring like Jack Romita Sr. I didn't say that. Come on.
Jack Romita.
Jack. I love me some Jack Romita Jr.
I love Steve Lee. He's so good. Oh, man. No,
Stan Ditko, that guy.
Stan Ditko, yes, Stan Ditko. No, I think that's this guy loves video games. So if you guys love video games and you love superheroes, this is your man. At one point, me and Chris will be doing a live stream of us playing Maximum Carnage online, which will be a lot of fun. So,
Chris, you want to talk about the Destiny comic, the tie-in comics for Destiny 2?
Wait, hold on. There's Destiny tie-in comics?
Yeah, I didn't even know.
Yeah, there's like after Destiny 2's vanilla game release for the two first DLCs, Curse of Osiris and Warmind.
Yeah,
there were three issue tie-in comics for Curse of Osiris and Warmind each, and then there was like another one before Forsaken came out called Cade 6.
Okay, yeah.
Just to
him getting killed.
Bungie did.
Bungie? They published
as far as I know, that's from their own publishing division.
No crap.
They were actually physical books, or were they like the Grimoire?
Yeah, they have a paperback on the Bungie store, I think.
What?
Wow.
Yeah, they've been releasing the Grimoire from Destiny 1 in paper in like hardback, I think.
Wait a minute. So I have my old co-host from the Blaster Cannon podcast. Saf and Megan are huge Destiny fans, and they never told me this. I don't think they even knew about this. Is this like the best kept secret?
Not anymore.
Well, we're not
That's
now.
Interesting. I mean, the lore in Destiny is one of the more compelling aspects, but it's really opaque. Like I know that people who tried to get into it were having some difficulty getting into the game because it was hard to keep track of what the stakes were. And the recent expansions, I thought, did a pretty decent job at sort of exemplifying why you were fighting for what you were fighting for. I really liked Forsaken.
They did a better job. Destiny 2's like Forsaken, Shadowkeep, and Beyond Light have done a much better job of translating the lore, like the background lore, into the game itself. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you're playing Season of the Chosen right now, but they've done an amazing job translating like Keitel and the Midnight Coup, all that stuff from year one of Destiny 2. Into the lore, into the ongoing conflict in the ongoing season, which is a problem that early Destiny and Destiny 2 had.
Yeah, I went hard into D1 with a lot of people, and then I tried to pick up the second one. I still haven't played a raid in Destiny 2, but I played a lot of the single player stuff.
No more video game stuff.
You want to play Deepstone Crypt and putting together a fire team.
Okay, yeah, and I know that they're bringing the Vault of Glass back, and that brings an old fogey like me right back.
Are you a PC guy?
No, I have it on Xbox and PlayStation, but they're supposed to open up crossplay pretty soon.
Yeah, I think that's in beta testing right now. So,
okay.
All right, enough about video games. We say that for
you opened this Pandora's box.
I did.
You started this. I'm sorry it's not going the way you wanted. But
I can bring it back though, because we were talking about Bendis. So Bendis, one of the very first. I don't know. I don't think it was the first, but one of the first Spider-Man stories that he wrote was that Activision game tie-in comic. So I bought it a couple of years ago just to have it in my collection, and it was only printed in that GamePro magazine. But he also helped, understandably, co-write the story for Ultimate Spider-Man, the 2005 game,
right?
Which was also pretty solid.
That was supposed to be canon to the series, I think, but then I don't think that. I think
that's
what I heard.
Isn't it essentially just a retelling of several arcs of the Ultimate Spider-Man game?
That was my impression. Yes.
No, there was some. I don't know. I thought I read something like it was supposed to build off what he had already done. Maybe that basically means it was retelling the the comics, and then I don't know. There was something I think. maybe like the plot of the game was supposed to like launch into the comic later or something. I don't know.
But the game came after the comic though, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It came out in 2005, didn't it?
Yeah, 2005, and the series started in
it was well after that.
Well, what I mean is that like, it was supposed to be, I thought I heard something about like it was supposed to like the comics were going to something about like they were linked basically. Like there were like plot threads in the game that were going to cross over into the comics or something. I don't know.
It ran with the story of the ultimate creation of the Venom symbiote,
right?
And I think it added some additional material because you split the game between playing as Peter and playing as Eddie Brock.
Yeah, I remember. I played it.
It's a good game.
I remember that battle. I don't remember that Battle for New York game. You played as the Green Goblin.
Oh, it was terrible. That was a terrible game.
Battle for New York. Was that like on the
It was for the DS.
Yeah, no, wait, hold on.
Oh, okay.
Which one was Web of Shadows? I think of Web of Shadows.
Yeah, that was fine.
Web of Shadows wasn't bad. It was.
I had it on the Wii though, so I gotta give
you. But you got the costumes. You didn't get the. So you're lucky in that respect. On the PlayStation 3, you couldn't get the unlockable costumes.
One of these days, Paul, I'll bring Web of Shadows. I gave you a 360 a couple years ago. I'll bring Web of Shadows and you can try it. But yeah, and you need to play Shattered Dimensions though. Slot helped write the story for that game.
He wrote the whole thing, I think.
Remember, they hate Slot. This one hates Slot.
I like Slot's work, but I hate his recent stuff. I like his like 2010 ASM.
Yeah.
Up to like mid Superior.
I thought you didn't like Slot at all.
No, I've told you before. I really like Big Time.
Oh, that's right. You like Big Time. That's right. Okay.
And early Superior, and then everyone just started taking stupid pills, and that was when I fell off the plot.
And Shattered Dimensions came out in 2010, so he was kind of on.
And he was in his groove
of that. Yeah, exactly. And it was a really interesting idea because he played as traditional Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, Noir Spider-Man, and Miguel O'Hara, 2099.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an interesting story that brought them all together, but it was differently segmented ways in which you play Spider-Man.
Yep.
So like the more traditional combat on Amazing, the web-based stuff and swinging around, but then when you go to a noir level, you have to be more stealthy and you have to hang in the shadows.
Like Batman. Yeah, it was like Batman.
Yeah, but using Spider, and I mean, I love playing.
It was fun though. It was fun.
I love playing Spider-Man games.
It was essentially Noir was essentially a watered down Arkham game.
Kinda, yeah. It was definitely a lot more shallow, but it had its moments. And fighting Hammerhead in the 30s, it just seemed like it made a lot of sense.
Hammerhead's a great character. I love Hammerhead.
Instead of being an anachronism like he is in modern comics, he was in the era that he was supposed to be.
Right. Well, it's funny enough, bringing back the comics for one, since now you guys hijacked it to our video game podcast here.
Comic book video games. Come on.
It's
superhero.
It's Vidya Binge.
The Vidya Binge.
No, but speaking of which, Hammerhead, I love that character, and I've always liked him but it was Conway's run that I really fell in love with him. Conway, who introduced him, I loved how he used him in there. Like Conway's run's so good, but yeah, I loved Hammerhead and Dr. Octopus going at it. I love that rivalry. That was so good.
I want to bring it back to one more thing because Paul, I don't know how much you know about this, but there was a sequel game to Shattered Dimensions called. No. I want your take on this seriously because Edge of Time. It was written by Peter David.
Yep.
And it pared the playable characters down to 2 instead of the 4. It was just Peter and 2099. And who was the guy that ran Alchemax? I can't remember his name.
It was Future. Are we talking about the traditional one or the one in that game?
The one in that game.
That was Future Peter.
It was Future Peter who Val Kilmer played?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, so anyway, that's the thing.
Val Kilmer played Future Peter.
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, so Val Kilmer played him, and then Laura Vandervoort, who played Supergirl on Smallville, played Mary Jane, And the guy Josh Keaton, who played Spider-Man in
the Spectacular, right?
Spectacular, played Peter, and then the Christopher Daniel Barnes, who played Peter in the '90s animated show, played Miguel O'Hara.
Yep. Wait, I was wrong. Val Kilmer played Sloane.
Sloane, yes, thank you. And Anti-Venom is also in it. But it was a story about how Peter started working at Alchemax in the modern era, and how that was rippling through time into Miguel's point of view. And it was an interesting way of telling a story, but David went to David into it. And a lot of people just lost the plot.
How could you go to David? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Look, man, I love Peter David. I'm a Aquaman Peter David fan. Like, that's what got me into Peter David. I came to his Hulk later. It was Aquaman that really brought me back onto understanding his brilliance.
I love his Black Manta, like the way he goes, "Hey, King of the Seas, how's the wife and kid?" That line always gets me. That line always gets me laughing because I love how obsessed Black Manta is with killing his kid.
Yeah, it's just brutal as hell.
Wait, so I'm like the oldest one here, and actually, I wanted to ask you this today, Neil. It goes to all of you because I've been thinking the last couple of days about Wizard Magazine. How familiar are you with Wizard Magazine?
I'm not. Well, I've heard the horror stories.
There's horror stories, but the reason I bring it up with this whole Aquaman thing is because I remember when they brought Peter David on Aquaman, it was a big deal. They talked a lot about it, and they praised it a lot because of it was Peter David. It was you're shaking things up, and they definitely praised it. It feels. How many people here are familiar with the Pitchfork Media website? Okay, my music buddy over here is. Pitchfork Media at one point, now it's just a corporate conglomerate, whatever, bullcrap. But at one point was like super hip, pretentious, like, oh, here's my scarf, and I'm going to talk about this Andrew WK album, and out of 10, I'm going to give it a 2 because it's so dumb. Like stuff like that, right? Like they're just really pretentious and whatever. And that's kind of what Wizard Magazine was, but it was very, very popular, right?
Aren't they also big Roger Stern shills?
Yes. The thing is like in like I've seen a lot of I've seen people like around. This isn't like to knock the crawl space or anything. It's not the crawl space proper, but there were people on the crawl space like message boards and stuff talking about how Wizard was like a detriment to the book because Wizard were such stern shills, and when the reboot happened, Wizard was like Wizard's opinions were somehow like influencing how it was going. Like, I don't know. It was a whole mess. Like basically the idea was that like, Wizard was kind of stuck in the past and sort of not really trying to, they had very, set. A lot of the people at Wizard had a lot of set ideas of the Spider-Man character. And it was
absolutely,
it was like to the detriment of the actual book at the time, especially when it was coming off the Clone Saga and
they hated
all
the
that
Clone Saga.
Yeah.
They ripped that thing to shreds. What they did, and I owned a ton. I got rid of a bunch, but I still have a ton. I think I showed you, Chris. I have a whole bunch still.
Dude, my cat was in Wizard, so
nice.
Yeah. It looked like he was reading an issue of Wizard when I got home from working at the comic shop one day, and I snapped a picture, sent it in, and the next month, like, holy hell, my cat's in this.
That's awesome. Well, Wizard was they were big into, like, they had their things they loved, right? And obviously Rob Liefeld was someone they hated. And then he even went on in recently, whether you love or hate Rob Liefeld, the dude has history, he knows his stuff. And he's not necessarily a liar. He definitely expands on his truth, whatever. But he talked a lot about Wizard, which made it a lot more sense to me, just about how they had their own agendas and that they were definitely paid by comic book people to push their stuff. They definitely had their shills and they definitely had their ideas of what they wanted in the books, and they definitely pushed for that. And like when Untold Tales of Spider-Man came out, they praised the hell out of that book, which again is one of my favorite Spider-Man books. So don't get me wrong, they're not wrong. But they would just bash the Clone Saga. And again, Clone Saga was not a popular thing or a cool thing to like because it was stupid, whatever. But
it sold very well.
Exactly. And that's the thing. In fact, I bring them all up because I bring up the Flash, Mark Waid. They would not shut up about Mark Waid's Flash run. They wouldn't shut up about Peter David's Aquaman. They wouldn't shut up about so many different books. And I just remember like I always have an affiliation with creators and everything like that with Wizard a lot of times. And Mark Waid's one of them. And Peter David is too. Aquaman specifically, I always think back to Wizard just praising those stories and those comics. And I read a couple of them like in the last couple of years, and it hasn't grabbed me as much as I wanted it to. I'll be honest. I like what Peter David did.
That's because you read Time and Tide. You didn't read the proper monthly. Time and Tide wasn't great.
Oh yeah, I read the proper monthly like 3 months, like 3 or 4 issues, and I couldn't. The art was really jarring. I could not. The art really made it hard.
Really?
This was late 90s Marvel, yes?
No, mid. This is early mid 90s actually.
Oh, yes. I just have the crash.
Yeah, well, right before the crash. The crash was happening, they're in the midst of the crash.
Right.
So the Clone Saga, because I got out of comics right after the Clone Saga ended, because I just was like, it wasn't Spider-Man, it was everything at that point. Comics itself were just becoming way too much, and it was way too much for me to keep track of, to a point where I was like, I'm out.
Well, hold on. Since I have a couple Spider-Man people here, and since I wasn't actively
3 Spider-Man people here,
the books when Clone Saga was coming out, was the edict to expand Clone Saga in response to the sales, or
yes?
Okay,
yes.
that was the primary motivation.
Short answer is yes. Like, from what I understand, and like go to I think the Life of Riley blog.
Yeah,
talks about
fantastic
it.
blog, fantastic.
I was going to say,
Which
Life
it covers
essentially a compendium of everything.
It covers everything. It's got like Glenn Greenberg talks about stuff, and I think Tom DeFalco talks about stuff. The short answer is that like it was supposed to be, from what I understand, like it was supposed to replace Peter. Like,
yeah, it was.
But then the sales were through the roof, and it's like, okay, we gotta keep this gin train rolling, and like, you gotta extend this thing. You gotta keep this thing going, because the sales are just, up and up and up and up. So they kept going, back and forth and back and forth, and then it's like, well, people don't like that Peter isn't the real Peter, so you gotta bring the real Peter back. And yeah.
How much did the success of Clone Saga on the sales side bleed off from, or I guess, how much were they impacted by the success of the X books at the time?
Well, I mean, the X books were huge. I mean, so they,
right, yeah. So Marvel in general just had a bigger lens on them.
Well, they've always had a bigger lens. I mean, they've been dominating the market for over DC for a long time.
The only reason like the X-Men went into, I guess, obscurity is because of the artificial Inhumans push in 2015.
Well, I would say even before that, the X-Men started losing steam. I'd say right around. I'd say before Messiah Complex, it started to kind of slowly die. It slowly started to come across, die. I think after, what arc am I? After Morrison left, it started to slowly not abruptly, but slowly started to kind of dwindle, and it had a couple upticks.
I don't know. See, my perception of that was they hit these stratospheric highs in the 90s. In the era where comics were being sold,
and so anything after that stratospheric rise to prominence, anything below that looks
right. When they plummeted so low. That's what dictated when Quesada came into power to bring someone like Morrison onto the X-Men, because Morrison was coming off of JLA that did reasonably well for DC, and then New X-Men started to inch the audience for X-Men back up. And then Chuck Austin came on, and then eventually,
everything.
Right, yeah, and then it kind of dovetailed upward again with Brubaker and Fraction. But then
the takeaway from Chuck Austin should be: don't give him anything to write. Don't give him Avengers. Don't give him.
He's Avengers. I mean, it was weird. I love Jeff Johns' Avengers. So going from Johns' Avengers to then Chuck Austin, and then just being blindsided by Disassembled was a really awkward reading.
That's what I was kind of leading to with Bendis, because you had Chuck Austin's Avengers run, which had like all these weird relationships being developed, and like it felt like it had no direction. And then you have Disassembled, which is like, bam, Scarlet Witch is insane again. Iron Man's a drunk. Hawkeye's dead.
But hold on, but that's the whole point of it, though. That's the point of the story. Was that
Paul, explain the thing that we watched the other day.
It came out of nowhere, though, like in the greater lens of like the arcs surrounding Disassembled.
But here's the problem, Neil. This is where I'm going to disagree with you, and we'll push back.
Ant-Man's dead.
But here's the thing, though. But in comic books, and you're starting your home story, you have to kind of have a base that you can't just be like, I'm going to piggyback exactly what the last guy did, exactly verbatim. No, he's going to pick up a little bit.
Paul.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what Brevoort said, because we watched that thing the other day.
Man, dude, you go, because I don't remember what you're exactly talking about. I know we watched the Brevoort thing, but
we watched the Brevoort interview where he talked about exactly what the philosophy was going into Disassembled, and how. Well,
there was a reason. Yeah,
like he hadn't worked with Bendis very much by the time Bendis was handled Avengers, and the idea for effectively blowing up the Avengers actually came from Mark Miller, but it was Bendis who said, "Let me write this direction." And they basically said, "We need a Marvel Justice League. We need someone. We need a team that has all of our major characters. Why haven't Spider-Man and Wolverine been members of the Avengers before?" Yeah. And that was like the idea. But yeah, it was very much like, here's what became stale, and they seemed to think that it was really exemplified by what Chuck Austin was doing on the book, because Austin was writing, I think, as if he was going to be heading up to number 500.
You're right. That's right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Then they realized, well, this is the point where we have to make a clean break if we're going to, because there was structurally a thing they were doing for it from behind the scenes, but I'm talking about just strictly from a creative standpoint. I mean, I think the whole point of the story is all of a sudden Tony is a drunk, and he's like, I didn't even drink. To Neil's point, though, I think that anytime...
You can't agree with Neil. That's not allowed here. That's it. You're out of here.
No. Bye, guys. All right.
I'm just kidding.
I think that like anybody that comes on to a long-standing monthly book usually comes in with the impression that, okay, once I'm finished, I'm going to pretty much set everything back to status quo so that the next guy has room to jump in and do whatever he or she wants to do. With the Avengers, though, that was no longer really possible, because by the time Bendis was finished, upwards of
Austin had changed the lineup so radically that you couldn't really go back to status quo. Like Wasp was in this weird love affair with Hawkeye. Cap was Cap was in depression mode because British lady died. I think it was Lionheart, right?
So Austin made those changes, but then by the time you actually do finally get to the end of Bendis's run, the Avengers line as a whole is virtually unrecognizable compared with where it was before he started.
Because you had Spider-Woman, you had Spider-Man and Wolverine, you had who else was there? You had the
Luke Cage, Sentry. Wait, you're talking about New Avengers from back before he left? Which one are you talking? What were you talking about?
I think we're just talking about his overall Avengers saga.
Oh, okay.
Because after he left, instead of kind of settling back into the groove of a regular quote-unquote monthly comic book, you had another sort of high concept.
Like Hickman was really into the charts and shit, and so you had you had your Magnificent Six there with a bunch of sub teams that could be rotated in and out rather than Hickman or Bendis had his pre-established lineup of Magnificent Seven. Mm-hmm. But what Hickman did, and I think it was pretty cool. My knowledge of pre Austin and John's Avengers is pretty limited, but this felt more like a pick and choose. He's basically given himself a wide berth to have whatever characters he wants on the Avengers, and he can pick and choose what he wanted.
I don't like that. I never liked the idea. When he made Cannonball and Sunspot Avengers, get that crap out of there. That's stupid.
I think on paper it's a dumb idea, but I love the way Hickman writes Cannonball and Sunspot. So
that's fair. But you know what? As far as for me, I'm no, they're not Avengers. They're X-Men.
Well, by that logic, that same argument can be applied to Spider-Woman and Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a loner, so why the hell is he on the Avengers?
I'm fine with that.
And for me, because honestly, me, it's a mutant thing. I want the mutants to stay on the mutant side. I don't like this cross pollination. Here's the other problem. If
So
it
you
was,
hated the concept of Uncanny Avengers then when that came around?
no, because that was purposefully to bring in mutants and humans together. I liked that concept. That was an interesting concept. See, it's different. See, Hickman, I'll never forget what he said before the Avengers book came out. It was, I can't wait to show, it's a really cool lineup. It wasn't a lineup. It's literally anyone who was an Avenger. It was just, there's no, one thing I don't like about like certain team books, and not just his, because I think his New Avengers, which is the Illuminati basically, was awesome. That was a fantastic series. But his regular Avengers run with, I feel like having these people. It's not Secret Defenders from the 90s, Hickman. This is like, give me an actual team to get behind and like love these characters and get to know these characters. It's like, yeah, if everyone can be an Avenger, there's no excitement of that. You can't really get behind anyone and go, yeah, they're an Avenger.
Well,
No,
that just
Hickman's Avengers.
That just reinforces the point, though, that
there's no reinforcing. It's not an Avenger.
No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the idea, the concept that just setting things back to status quo was blown up and was totally changed with the Avengers. Outside of a Secret Wars level universal reset, or
which is honestly what we got, and then we had the all new, all different Avengers by Wade.
Yeah, but then it didn't even really get back to what was a recognizable Avengers status quo
until we got to like Aaron's Avengers, where we're God's vomit now.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I like Aaron's Avengers already.
The Avengers have been changed irrevocably, and it's doubtful that outside of a flashback story, we're not going to get sort of the Avengers Mansion status quo style Avengers story, at least not for a while.
But we're getting that a little bit with Aaron's Avengers, because Aaron's got the, they're all in. I love the idea of it in a celestial head. I think that's really cool. I mean, there's cool concepts in that book. It's just not, the lineup is weird.
I need to catch up.
I hate Aaron's Avengers, not just because like I like the idea. I like some of the ideas he's got in there. Like I love the idea of like a superhuman Cold War. Yes. In fact, I'm actually borrowing that idea for something I'm working on, but I'm focusing on that rather than like it just being like a little side thing like Aaron's been doing. Like it's just been like something in the background that I think could be easily into its own book. But I think Aaron cares more about the plot than he does about like the actual characters, because like he fucked up She-Hulk and then he fucked up Ghost Rider, and he kind of just does whatever he wants and just without any real regard. Like he retconned the Phoenix into being Thor's mom, and I'm like, what the hell? But what is this? Especially considering that I think didn't he bone the Phoenix in an earlier story that Aaron did?
I know. I have no idea. I haven't. I'm behind. I left right when the Brood came in, and I've been meaning to pick it back up since.
Well, so this kind of goes back though to so what does it look like, or what does it mean for a status quo to be irrevocably altered so that we can never really go back to those quote unquote traditional stories? Guys, Spider-Man is a core example of that.
Yup, I was just thinking that.
Like, on a brand level, Spider-Man has become the Spider-Verse concept.
Yeah, but I mean, Paul, I thought you put it really well. I can't remember where you said it. I mean, who knows?
I put it well everywhere, every day. So
you say so many things.
Keep track of this.
But the idea of going with a quasi more quote unquote traditional high school Spider-Man story, that can be Miles' territory now.
Yep.
And that's totally fine. So those stories can be told, not necessarily with Peter, but you can still get them from somewhere.
Yep.
But you look at the trajectory that Peter's had since JMS, the status quo for even though Brand New Day comes along and really tries to push things into a status quo position or a relative status quo position from before the marriage thereabouts.
And it doesn't work.
And then Slott stays on for so long that he goes so far away from that again, with Spider-Man, his status quo is irrevocably altered on a similar level to the Avengers. So can you ever tell those kinds of quote-unquote traditional Spider-Man stories again without being a flashback, or should you ever tell those kinds of Spider-Man stories again?
Yes, and yes. I don't think those stories are going to be gone, because I still think just because you're not a loner, if you're, let's just say this, if you're a loner for a while and then you do try out the whole group thing for a while, like being part of a group, whatever. Again, just in general with anybody, right? It doesn't mean you're not a loner by heart. It doesn't mean that and it doesn't mean you'll ever try it again. Like, hey, I love.
I'm not really talking so much about him being a loner, but like it's difficult for me. And granted, I have a lot of catching up to do with Spencer.
Spencer says I prefer Uma Thurman's Avengers.
That's funny, but I have a lot of catching up to do with Nick Spencer's Spider-Man. But I have a hard time seeing what they've set up from Spider-Man to ever go to a point where he's struggling to pay his rent by selling pictures of himself to Jonah.
Well, I don't think you can really go back to that anymore.
Well, that's different though, but that's because of the times of
exactly. That's just
right. But you can still have a struggle.
It's sort of like
of course.
Think of it like this: you can't show the twin towers. You can't show the twin towers anymore because they're gone.
Right.
Yeah.
So anything that like I think on the Marvel Wiki they refer to it as as a cultural reference.
Yeah,
like a
topical
reference.
Yeah,
so like you can't in the same vein that you can't have the twin towers anymore because they got destroyed. You can't have Peter being a photographer anymore because that's from, or at least not a photographer in the sense that he used to be.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
He can't just go. He can't take like his dad's 35mm camera or his uncle's 35mm camera and go snap some shots.
Yep.
And go to like the photo development lab.
Yeah.
It's become a much more complicated and not necessarily more difficult or complicated, but like it's become photojournalism. As someone who's taking a journalism class right now, it's become a completely different field of work than what it used to be. So you can't. So in a way, because of Spider-Man's relevancy to the current day, you can't go back to some status quo shifts. You can't go back to Peter takes amateur photos for cranky old man.
Yeah.
How would that even look? Peter is on Fiverr, and Robbie just agrees to only hire Peter off of Fiverr and just doesn't tell Jonah.
And like, there's a ton of labor laws that have changed in the U.S. since since the original Lee Ditko run. Like, you wouldn't see like a 15-year-old. I know that like he's supposedly 18 like in the original Lee Ditko run, but like it's been retconned to him being 15.
Yeah.
I can't even keep track anymore.
Well, the floating timeline complicates things too, because if you look at the MCU now, or I think a better example is the PS4 game, because Peter's been Spider-Man for about 8. No, just as an example for the floating timeline.
Paul, get a grip.
Peter's been Spider-Man in that game for about 8 years, so the Twin Towers have been down for close to a decade when he's 15 and actually starts being Spider-Man, right? Mm-hmm. How does the floating timeline really apply to the even though it's not really technically the 616 anymore?
That's
how does it apply to the
mainline? Get that out of here.
But I mean, how do you even do flashbacks?
Chris raises an important question, because like when you look at like ASM Volume 2, number 36, the Twin Tower, the 9/11 issue. Yeah. That's incredibly dated because of the floating timeline, this is like I believe the 21st anniversary of 9/11.
20th, the 20th is September.
So like, and Peter's been Spider-Man in universe for I believe in the comics like he's in his mid to late 20s now.
Yeah.
So 9/11 happened when he was 5.
Right.
So you can't have the 9/11 issue happen anymore because.
But you can still
realistically, there's no way for it to logistically happen
unless you take Spider-Man out of. But even then, like Captain America was probably still in the ice back then.
But we're thinking too hard about it. Literally, that's the
probably. But that's what comic book fans do.
I realize that.
These are things that I'm just kind of like, okay, whatever.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, yeah,
exactly what you have to do.
Yeah, you have to because it doesn't make sense otherwise.
Yeah.
You can't just have the Twin Towers just still there for no reason.
Well, guess what? They're back. I mean, that's not
one of them is. I mean,
when the New 52 happened, they said that every DC hero at the beginning of that had been around for roughly 5 years. But then Morrison was still continuing his narrative on Batman. And in Morrison's run, every single adventure for Batman was canon. Yeah. So you condensed Batman's entire publication history into a window of 5 years. So he's gone through 5 Robins by then. 6, and Jason's died and come back. Was it 6
We
by
don't want to
then?
talk about New 52. We want to talk about that. Let's not talk
Also, but to kind of jump off of that a little bit, DC announced that they were doing a limited series that had to do with the linear verse, where like, yeah, everything
Oh
happened.
no,
but
that's just them explaining like how that's just basically their way of saying the floating time scale.
I know, but that's an interest. I just thought that was sort of relevant, you know. It was
no,
the
no,
idea
but
that
that's a good point.
Themselves into a corner though, man, because now their past, present, and future are canonized.
Not to mention like the various retcons and full-on reboots that have happened in the 80-ish years that those characters have been around. Like we've got at least 3 full-blown Crisis tier events that have completely reset some characters.
yeah, it doesn't make sense, and it's great.
It's fun. I let them bring on the crises.
DC's new trade dress. Fuck it, we don't know what's going on, so you don't have to either.
Yeah,
That was one of the fun things about reading Final Crisis as it was coming out, was just how bonkers and off the wall it was, but it still had its own internal logic to it, and it followed its own rules. And
yeah. Well,
I love that.
And let's be real here. I mean, I don't fault anyone for liking anything or for, you know, whatever comics they're into. It's just, you know, and like you said, you have to kind of go with it and just roll with it, you know. And I think that's what DC's finally starting to realize. Let's be real. Also, they brought in some great material from these Crisis events. I mean, Crisis on Infinite Earths might be one of my favorite comic stories of all time. I just ordered the trade the other day, much to my wife's chagrin. So, I mean, like seriously, I love the art is phenomenal. The writing's phenomenal. It is a great, great science fiction story that I know those characters. I love it. I love that story, and I think it will hold up against the test of time. But at the same time, it also complicates things because it was meant to be a reboot of an entire universe. But now I think DC's kind of realized, oh, we don't need to reboot the entire universe to try to, like, you know, reset things in a sense to where, okay, have things make sense. Marvel has just kind of went with it and did a floating timeline and just rolled with the punches, because there's going to be punches coming.
Let's be honest too, and have fully clear eyes about what the true motivations are behind all of these moves. It always comes back to the money. Yeah, and when they decided to do Crisis, when they decided to do particularly the New 52, and granted it worked kind of, is by saying, oh, we're going back to #1 for every title. You have the chance now, for the first time since 1940, to buy Batman #1.
Yeah.
It led to huge sales. As a retailer who was working at that time, we got requests. We had a deal where you could buy all 52 #1s for $100. My boss was insane. And we had people from multiple states that were taking us up on that offer because we were using social media to get it across. And we over-ordered on a lot of New 52 books because you have to order the books 3 months in advance. DC has a different distributor now, but we over-ordered on a lot
at the time, right?
Yeah. They were with Diamond up until last summer.
Yep.
But we over-ordered on a lot of those books, but it showed in the sales figures. Those #1s bumped DC up into the top 10. Like Aquaman outsold every single Marvel Comics title for 6 months. And I can't remember a time where that had ever happened before. But now, with the nature of the comic book readership having changed again, I think the publishers are starting to understand that we need to stop going for this pie in the sky that we're going to open up the tent and bring so many other people into the fold. It's comic book fans that are reading comics. So
dude, imagine holding an A&W mug and saying, "Yeah, I'm totally gonna own someone with that."
No, it's that was a shout out to my homie. He knows who he is.
But
he just texted me.
They understand that the people who are still picking up DC Comics on a regular monthly basis are the people that are really invested in the continuity and who want to see the old characters that they've missed for a long time restored again to some kind of status in the current manifestation of the DC universe. So they've opened up the floodgates. Granted, from a creative standpoint, there is no limit to the kinds of stories that DC can tell by bringing everything back. And it engenders additional goodwill with people that have been reading DC Comics for a long time, but they have smartened up in realizing that, you know, going for all the new #1s, if we do it again, it's probably just going to be a cheap stunt and it's not going to be as well received as the last time we did it. So let's bring things back to the core and see how long we can go on.
I'm actually surprised that I'm surprised that like they didn't do like a massive like relaunch like they did with Rebirth. Like I'm surprised like how rarely they've relaunched, because like Marvel hasn't relaunched I think in 3 years now, and I was like, wow,
it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do, and that's one thing I have an eventual video I'm going to do where it's going to be. Look, hold on, Chris. Hold on.
I just wanted to quickly mention the nice thing about Marvel going back to doing their numbers again.
Well, dual legacy numbering.
They keep the legacy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what I want. Look, go ahead, bring out a new number one. I don't care. But if I check out a Spider-Man at number 6 for a year and I'm like, oh, what's going on with Spider-Man? What's on the rack? Number 6. It's going to be confusing. I'm going to go, where the hell do I slot it in my books? Keep the legacy numbering. That's all I ask in Marvel.
Yeah, here's the thing, and I'm eventually going to do a, because again, the Comic Binge is meant to be a place for people to get to know comic books, to get comfortable. Like, I want to bring the shop in aspect of comic books onto the YouTube, but not just that, but like actually help people to like learn, because I'm still learning every day. I don't know everything about comics. I know a decent amount, but I don't know everything, and we're gonna break it down to a science of like. We're going to have indie books. We're going to have, mainstream books. We're going to go all over the place. But one of the things I want to get this misconception idea is that it's intimidating to get into comic books. It's intimidating because you don't know where to start. That's the most intimidating thing about it. But I want to do a video where it's like, I'm basically going to say it's actually not as intimidating as you think. Because because how do you think I got into comic books? I didn't start at the ground floor. I went into Spider-Man randomly and just started reading a comic book. And what happened? I think people who say like, "Oh, I don't know where to start," that's nice. So no one else does. Here's the secret. Here's the secret. Just go into a store, find something that you think is cool, check it out.
Yes.
And just binge it.
Take the plunge, and take the plunge and do the binge,
and then go from there. I started out like finding my friend's Amazing Spider-Man trade. I was like, "Hey, this looks kind of cool," and then I went and just picked up ASM, and
exactly,
it's been there ever since.
And that's what I want. And that's my goal of this is basically to let people know comics are not intimidating, and you just got to just jump into it, and you just don't worry about it, and encourage people to jump into it. And I think part of the problem right now is the culture of people who read comic books and are into it like we are, not us specifically, obviously, but people in the circle or other circles or whatever. It can be negative or gatekeepy, and that's with any kind of fandom, whether it be even football fandom or whatever. That's just fandoms. That's just human nature. People are gatekeepers by nature. That's reality.
Throw ball, run to end zone. I get it, guys.
But here's the thing, though. I want to create something where people can feel comfortable about asking questions, and there's everyone's kind of like in it. Everyone's in it together to like basically push the medium of comic books, because this is the most appreciated medium out there, in my opinion. And I just want everyone. There's a comic out there for everybody. You just gotta find it. And that's the thing. And now it's not meant for kids. It's not a nerd thing. It's whatever. It's whatever you are into. There's a comic book out there. You just have to find it. And that's the thing. I want the Comic Binge to be the place where people can find their comic, whether it be a superhero book or a day in the life book or slice of life, whatever the crap. I'm not into that stuff. That's not really my thing. But I'm gonna get it. But you know what?
That sounds like a you problem. I'm gonna be honest.
It is. I'm being honest. It's just not my thing. But you know what? I'm gonna dive more into it. I actually have some slice of life books that that my wife has, I should say, that I'm going to be reading. Yeah. And I'm going to be reviewing them on the Comic Binge at some point. No. They're her books. They're literally her books. I got them for her birthday.
Wasn't Morning Glories kind of a slice of life book? Yeah,
and that's a Nick Spencer book, right?
Yeah.
So
Archie's literally built around Archie. The character is literally built around
Archie's
slice of life.
But
I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that's the archetypal slice of life comic that everyone considers the foundation of that type of.
Except for Archie Meets the Punisher.
Or Archie
to be honest, that fits a very niche audience of two people, me and the Columbine shooter.
Oh God! All right. Neil's muted forever. No,
I gotta run, fellas. We're
about to jump off, but
okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
It was cool meeting you, Neil. Adam, good to see you again.
Nice to meet you too, man.
We'll be together at some point again.
Yeah,
sure.
Take care,
Love
fellas.
you, Chris.
Love you too, man. I'll see you.
Bye. No, yeah, and we're gonna wrap up here. And guys, thank you so much for joining. This has been like a blast. Like I love this. This is what I'm all about.
Jesus Christ! It's 11 o'clock.
I know, dude. But we've been hanging out this long. Neil, imagine me and you together. I can't believe it. We've been,
I didn't feel like I was looking at my clock. Like, is it over yet? Oh, thank God!
I'm like, I know. That's what I thought. I thought you'd be gone like 45 minutes ago, but you stuck on.
Bye, guys.
We went through. I think we've gone through the acquaintance phase. Now I think we're in the friend phase now. I think we're officially in the friend phase.
We're in the friend zone.
This is great. We're in the friend zone. This is great. But anyway,
I got you to say it.
Right, I did it. I don't care. No, but I really want this place to be, YouTube shows, whatever. I want it to be a place where people can get into comic books, whatever it is. And I'm going to I'm going to be promoting and doing more things than just superhero books. But let's be real. I mean, I love superheroes. It's going to be a big part of the show, or the channel. So that being said, I will be doing that, and I want to do a video at some point. I mean, it may be a year from now, but it's going to be a longer video. I want to just basically not train people, but I want people to feel comfortable, be like, oh, I can just go grab Amazing Spider-Man 267 and just read it, and because I always go back to those helpful little, to find out what Spider-Man's talking about, go to this comic book. And because lo and behold, what do we have right now? We have Marvel Unlimited. You can go read that comic right afterwards. So, I mean, there was something I was reading the other day that I was really disappointed in, that they were referencing things in the comic book, but they didn't do a little bullpen caption. And I was really disappointed by that. I'm like, why didn't they do that? That's stupid. Encourage people to go back and read comic books, for God's sake. So. Anyway, we're gonna tease. I'm gonna tease a little bit. We've been teasing this a lot. Me and Chris are eventually gonna do an official podcast. Even though I love these live streams, they're my jam. I'm gonna give you a hint of something that I was really not anticipating to love as much as I did. But I'm gonna say it right now. Might be my favorite Superman book maybe I've ever read.
Dang.
Yes.
House of L. Okay.
Yeah. This book, my friends, I'm not turning my glare on it, is so good. And I can't wait to talk about it with Chris. I'm just going to tease right now. I think it's a one shot. You could read this right now and not have to give a crap what's going on in future crap or whatever. You could just read it. And just
maybe I will.
No. Seriously. I encourage anyone. If you're even a moderate Superman fan, read this book, because it's, one, really freaking cool. And two, it captures the spirit of Superman better than I've read in a long time. Long time. And me and Chris are going to be breaking this down, plus Philip Kennedy Johnson's other stuff and other future state comic books. We're hopefully going to record that this week. It may be a live stream. I don't know yet. We're still figuring this out. But either way, Chris is gone. Adam, Neil, dude, thanks so much for jumping on, guys. I just asked you, I'm like, I want to do a live stream tonight. I wonder if these guys will want to come on with me. And you guys have. This has been a blast. Seriously, I love this.
I'm attention starved, so it all came together in the end.
That's fine.
I'm very lovable that way.
No. Hey, listen, I'm Neil. I have a lot of me and you, to be honest. You probably don't want to hear that, but no, I understand what you're saying, and I just really appreciate you coming on. You're awesome, and the more I've gotten to know you, man, honestly, I've loved you more and more. You're great. So just know that this is real. This is. Literally me falling in love with Neil on screen.
Dumb question. You didn't hear my son's flower seeds, did you?
No, maybe once or twice. But it's you're working on it. I appreciate it. So anyway, you Neil, pimp your stuff out, man. Come on, do that.
Oh yeah. Hi, I'm Neil. I have a show. It's called the Booger Rider Variety Hour. We do it on Saturdays when I feel like it. Saturdays at 8 p.m. We talk about comics. I'm planning on talking about this. Yeah, and video games. I stream video games on different days. I stream Dungeons and Dragons. I'm planning on doing some kind of commentary on the Snyder Cut when it comes out. I am going to talk about. I usually talk about things other than comic books. So hopefully that. Oh, okay. Bye. It's me, Nixon. I'm gone.
Yeah. But Neil's stuff is great. Go check it out, man. And you're gonna see us on the Spidey. Yeah. What? Give us your Twitch handle again.
It's twitch.tv/Quilsnev. I'll put it in.
Put on the thing for me. I'll post it for you. So, but yeah, people, I've gotten to know Neil, and Neil's great. We disagree pretty much on half the things we talk about, but that's the beauty of it. I love it. You don't have to always agree to be buds, and that's reality. Trust me. My buddy Justin Bulger can tell you that, right, Justin? You're watching, I think, still. So, oh wait, did you put it in the chat or what? I don't see.
I did.
See it. Wait, put it in the other chat, like the main chat.
I did. It's in private chat.
No. In the main chat where everyone can see it, so I can post it on here.
I can't.
You can't?
No.
Oh, god dang it! I'm sorry. All right. I don't know where I'm at half the time. I'll get to it eventually. I'm sorry, Neil. I just don't know where to go. I'm new to StreamYard, everybody. I'm sorry.
Streamlabs. It's better that way.
This is Anyway, Adam. Again, you have been so consistent with helping me out, and I just appreciate it like crazy, man. You're awesome, and
I just like helping people out. I like being involved, I guess.
yeah, well, yeah, and you're awesome. Like you have a lot to say, and I just, I've seen, and this is no disrespect, I've seen you like just get better, more confident, when you're on the shows, and it's been awesome, man. Like you're kicking ass. I just want you to know that. So
Thank you.
I just want to keep encouraging you to keep reading, keep doing stuff, put yourself out there, So, but yeah, Adam's awesome. Adam, where can they follow you if you disappeared forever? I'm not sure if you're gone. Did he go? Is Adam gone? Is he gone?
I guess he died.
No,
He
come
went back to
back.
his own planet.
Well, anyway, thank you for whoever watched the Comic Binge live stream. We'll do plenty more, obviously, before. Yeah, we're doing a lot more of these. These are a blast. You can check me out on Twitter at Herman22, which you probably already know that if you're watching this, but if you're not, check it out there. Comic Binge on Twitter, also at Binge Comic. This has been a blast. Thank you, Adam. Are you back yet? Oh, wait, Adam.
Yes.
Adam, pimp.
Wow,
pimp
that was like perfect timing. Holy
I know, Adam. Pimp your Twitter, man. Tell people where they can follow you. I want them to follow you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Enchilada Legs. Yeah, you can find me there.
Oh man, I can't spell that. You're killing me, man. So I'm a horrible speller. I can't do math. I'm useless to society. Let's just be real. So, but no, it's all good. Everyone, again, thank you. Like, honestly, I know I'm not expecting huge numbers from these live streams, but the 4 or 5 people on, and then just no disrespect, I really appreciate it. Like, seriously, mean a lot to me. Yeah, see us on the Spidey Dude Experience probably next week, not this Wednesday, but next week.
Yeah.
So
I think so.
And maybe you'll see him on a live stream again soon, shortly. So anyway, everyone, thanks for coming on, and we'll see you later. Bye.